Alright guys, we're back. So like I said before, I had a capture failure in the previous part, so I already know what's going to happen until we get to Sakuko's boss fight.
シュウいるか？
なんだ相棒。
今のこの状況、いつまでも宇宙船総合校をしていたい。
That's an interesting question. You don't often hear characters in the Silent Hill series voice such questions like that about the world they're in. I know in Silent Hill 2 there were instances where James would talk about the state of the world, but not really to this degree, I would say.
私かお前の夢の中ってことはないよな。
だったら互いの頬をつねり合ってみるか。
いや、自分の方法くらい自分でつねれる。
残念だが夢じゃないみたいだな。
Okay. Not really sure what the whole point of that cutscene was. But I've gotten a lot of comments on my first video. And yeah, a lot of people don't like this game, and I can totally understand that. It's hard to really be impressed by what I've seen so far. But this part right here, we're just going to be taking one path to get past the enemies. There is an optional moment where you can go to Sakuko's shrine, but it's pretty pointless. And that's a mandatory dodge right there, just to tutorialize getting grabbed by enemies. Yeah, you have to press the dodge button way earlier than what you're expecting to initiate a perfect dodge.
気持ち悪い。
ひなこか。この気持ち悪いのには触るなよ。毒があるかもしれない。右の庭から回ってこっちに来い。
わかった。
And here we're going to be introduced to a new enemy. I don't know if this is a mini boss or it's just a new enemy type. So you have to get him to do an attack. This attack seems to give him the most recovery compared to the other ones, but you get him to do the attack there, and then you gotta turn this. And this will spawn another enemy. So it's best you get rid of this enemy because it can be a nuisance. It moves way faster than the big guy. What the hell? Why'd the hint not show up? That was weird. That particular attack normally has a counter indicator on it, but this time it didn't. I wasn't attacking, I wasn't dodging, it just wasn't there. But there are certain animations that these enemies do where they can move and they don't seem to have any sort of counter indicator. They just immediately transition into an attack that you cannot counter. I also saw briefly that you can counter this particular enemy. I'm not really sure how that's possible, but I'm not really sure how to get the counter indicator to appear. Oh shit! Come on, I clipped on his weapon. It's dead. Again, I gotta get him to do an attack. Okay, that's the move I need. You have to turn this 3 times in order to get the key. Here's the attack I need. And there we go.
よし。
ひなこ、蔵の窓だ。急げ。大丈夫か。
You can do that part without eliminating the other enemy, but it's pretty annoying because the enemy is
ジン
fast
コさんに頼まれたん
and
だ。
actually catching up to you when you're turning the crank.
お前を守れってな。
お姉ちゃんが。
ずいぶん前の話さ。さあ、行こうぜ。
行こう。
So in the comment section of my first video, I heard mention of a game called Forbidden Siren 2 and that this game could have been a part of that series. I've never heard of the game, but I can totally understand why people would be saying that because Silent Hill F doesn't really feel like a Silent Hill game in any sort of way.
ここで遊んだの。
I mean, I know the idea of Silent Hill may differ between the cultures, that I can understand, but aside from the fog, I don't really see any identifying iconography that really ties this game to the Silent Hill series. But the thing is, the games have always been pretty disconnected from each other. They've never really been designed in a way that feels cohesive in terms of a narrative. And the way the Otherworld worked in Silent Hill 2 and the other stuff regarding its supernatural elements, I think it works differently to how Silent Hill is portrayed to the other games.
春にはメダカやオタマジャクシ捕まえたっけ。水が気持ちよかったな。
Well, where's the water? That was badly done. I remember on my initial playthrough when I saw this cutscene there were stuttering issues, but I think the stuttering tends to happen if you pause the game.
遊んで泥だらけになって怒られたこともあったっけ。
You see, there's the stuttering just then.
懐かしい思い出ばかり思い出す。
今ではどれも懐かしいな。辛くなったらいつでも泣けよ。俺が絶対に相談に乗ってやるからな。
ありがとう、相棒。
よし、行こうぜ。霧が深いな。リンコのやつ無事だといいんだが。
相棒。
And now we have this puzzle, and on Lost in the Fog difficulty, the puzzle hints really don't make any sense. So you have to find the one scarecrow that is not an enemy.
どういう意味？
So the clue here is, I think I'll give you a standing ovation. And it's supposed to be, I think it's this one. It's the one that's looking up like this. I don't really understand why it's this particular one when it's referring to a standing ovation. But basically, on all difficulties, the scarecrow that you need is always a female, because it's tying into Hinako in a certain way. Of course, I don't really know what exactly we're trying to represent with this mental representation here. Like, what sort of internal dilemma is... Oh, I didn't notice the mask on the back. But, like, what sort of internal dilemma is Hinako experiencing that is being represented by this puzzle format? Doesn't really make sense. Yeah, so again, I'll give you a standing ovation, and it's this one for some weird reason. Like, why? Why is it this one? Is it something about the outfit? Or is it that in Japan a standing ovation has an alternate meaning? Or was it supposed to be translated as something else? Because something I should have pointed out before is that when you're translating from Japanese to English, there are always a lot of inconsistencies, because translating from Japanese to English presents with a lot of difficulties, like with the type of kanji and localization issues and other things like that. So I'm just wondering if standing ovation was supposed to be something else in the Japanese language. I mean, the only thing we really have as a sort of hint is Oh, that enemy's moving. Well, as far as I can tell, one, we know that the Scarecrow is supposed to be a female, and so a standing ovation for a female figure, I mean, you would assume that's just whatever is looking at the sky, right? So it would have to be this one. And I'm not too sure what the whole significance of these flashcards is. Yeah, but IGN was confused as well with why exactly the solutions were as such. And also, whenever you're in those locked view moments, the enemies are moving, which is pretty cheap. But if you go the wrong way, the game will teleport you to the puzzle. So, good riddance. It feels as though I finally got this painful burden off my chest. See, you're supposed to be finding out who the you is, not who the I is. And the painful burden off the chest, it's presumed to be related to... Are you serious? You're still following me?
またかかし
The way you escape combat on this game is a bit odd. It's almost like the enemies still kind of know where you are. But painful burden off the chest, it's supposed to be related to this one because the knife is on the ground. But I thought the puzzles were supposed to be related to you, not to I. The you in this case being Hinako. So when this clue is saying, I have the painful burden off my chest, that doesn't really make sense for it to be this one because the I is not the you in this case. The correct Scarecrow is supposed to represent Hinako. I feel like the I is supposed to be Sakuko, but we're not trying to find who's representing Sakuko, we're trying to find who's representing Hinako, so this puzzle doesn't really make sense. I remember IGN saying on their walkthrough of the puzzles that the puzzle hints and Lost in the Fog difficulty are pretty useless. They had to brute force the first two Scarecrows in this part. You hurt him and now you're leaving him behind. I hope you suffer for what you've done. It's supposed to be... Yeah, you see the dead body on the ground? It's this one, the one who's walking away. See, this hint actually makes sense, but the first two don't really make sense. But one thing I've always found really dumb about the puzzles in the Silent Hill series is how they change with difficulty, because it almost diminishes some of the in-game lore. It's like you can't really value some of the in-game lore if it's going to be changed between difficulties, because you don't know which one's the true piece of lore. You were such a thorn to my side, always getting between me and him. So, I think it's supposed to be this one? Yes. Because you have the female figure in front of you, and then the guy right in front of you who has that sickle. So like this female figure and this male figure, this female figure is between them. And I'm gonna correct myself, I don't think the eye in these puzzles is Sakuko, I think it's Rinko. Okay, I think these enemies can move. So I have to not get close to them, and I have to also make sure the camera is on them. Yeah, goodbye and don't ever show your face again. Go do your own thing, just like you always have. So this one is actually interesting in the way you solve it. Because you're assuming it's like the previous ones, but it's not. What you have to do is you have to find the bodies on the ground, and they're pointing in certain directions. Of course, I don't really know what go do your own thing has to do with this. But there is the body right there. Yeah, and then you get this typical Japanese horror jump scare. There was one time where I played hide and seek with a bunch of my friends when I was young. I got so excited and ran far away because I didn't want anyone to find me and eventually got lost around here. I was sobbing and hollering and walked the wrong way for hours. Actually, I was told later it was the exact opposite direction of my house. Even a town as small as this felt huge for me as a kid. I realized that I knew nothing about the town. Even the fields seemed to spread out endlessly into the horizon. I walk this path every time I go to Rinko's, but to be honest, to this day, I'm still scared that I might get lost. I mean, I've been told that I should probably just ask an adult for directions if I get lost, but then I remember that one time when I walked on the footpath of the rice fields for fun and got smacked by an old farmer all of a sudden. The trauma from that experience made me scared of adults back then and even to this day. Okay, so it's representing that? But then what about the school scarecrows? I mean, they're wearing school attire like they're students. I don't know, like the rules of Silent Hill and Abisugaoka don't really make sense. They just sort of vary in between individuals. And last I checked, the traumatic experiences that the individuals have are what actually cause the manifestations to show up in Silent Hill, which is why Laura from Silent Hill 2 can't actually see the manifestations because she's never had any traumatic experience because she's young and innocent. But that just doesn't make any sense to me. Every single human has some kind of fear or trauma, and the fact that Laura was even bullying James and acting the way she was, you would imply that she got that kind of behavior because she was traumatized, or is probably the victim of bullying, for instance. It really doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't really feel like a young, innocent child would ever behave like that.
ひなこ
リンコは
呼んでみよう。リンコ、俺だ、シュウだ。いるなら返事してくれ。
シュウ君来てくれたんだ。あ、ひなこも無事でよかった。
Yeah, Rinko seems to have some kind of hatred for Hinako with how she addresses her.
怪我はないか。家族は。
私は大丈夫。でも誰もいないの。足の悪いおばあちゃんまでいないなんて、こんなの絶対に変。誰もいないし、気味の悪い怪物がうろつき回ってるし、何が何だかわからないよ。
Yeah, so they can all see the monsters because they've likely had some sort of trauma. I mean, I don't even know if that rule applies to Abisugaoka. Okay, they were all just silent for a long duration. Oh, that's right, I remembered. One of the endings you can get in this game is the UFO ending, which is a staple of the series. It's always the goofy stuff that this series seems to be maintaining consistency on.
サクコ、あんないい子がどうして。
これ以上ここにとどまるのは危険だ。町を出た方がいい。
町を出るって、お父さんやお母さんは、みんなは。助けを呼ぶためにも、今は行動を急いだ方がいいかもしれない。
みんなを見捨てるわけじゃない。助けるためにも一度脱出する必要があるんだ。
でも町を出るって言ってもあれじゃ無理だよ。
無理ってどういう意味だ。
そっちの窓から鉄橋が見えるよ。霧が濃くなければ。
嘘だろ。
There are no flowers growing out of that bridge.
どうしよう。
東の鉄橋がダメなら西の県道を目指そう。
柊の家の裏山を抜けるのか。あの山越えられるの。
わさび田への道がある。うちだけの抜け道だ。リンコ、念のため薬や絆創膏を持っていきたい。
台所に救急箱あるよ。取ってくるね。あ、私も一緒に行こう。手伝う。
相棒が一緒なら安心だ。
So again, the actual acting of the scenes, it actually feels logical and feels more human compared to the previous Silent Hill games with some of the things they're saying. But I mean, this just comes out of nowhere. I guess her hatred for Hinako overshadows her fear of the unknown. Of course, it's maybe only from Hinako's perspective that Rinko seems to be acting like this, so maybe the actual Rinko isn't acting like this in this moment. Like, I don't know if that particular rule is being applied to this particular game. And so Hinako falls unconscious, and Rinko's just standing there the entire time. So what probably lasted for about a minute, or maybe like 5 minutes, plays out in Hinako's mind like she's in this other world for hours, because that's how subjective time dilation works, or you know, like the fluidity of time when you're asleep. Of course, it does seem odd that they're treating the other world like this, because I don't think the characters had to be unconscious or be sleeping in order to enter the other world. That was never the case in Silent Hill 2.
し待っててくれてもいいのに。
Yeah, so a lot of this is just going to be a big walking moment until we find the key.
誰?
Okay, but the key should be here. Yeah, here. And you go to another door. It should be... Is it this door? Yeah. Okay. Hinako is mine, and I'm just amazed she doesn't say anything about this particular letter. There are multiple letters throughout this area that indicate multiple girls have been through here, and it's almost like some guy is hunting them, and it's supposed to be the Foxhead guy, I believe.
あそこ空いてたっけ?
So I think you go this way. There we go. And the door opens. We can move on. I don't really use this weapon. I haven't found a need to use it. Alright, so this is yet again another massive running moment while a bunch of enemies are chasing you. Yeah, so I run past this enemy, then I have to perfectly dodge this enemy. Which is tricky to do because the timing is incredibly strict. It seems like you can't get past this enemy without perfectly dodging because it tracks your movement the entire time. It helps if you're looking at the enemy just to get an idea as to when you're supposed to perfectly dodge.
Sakuko?
I'm not entirely sure why Sakuko is here. Must be some lingering trauma. Right, and then you go in here. This family that's cursed, is that supposed to be in reference to that previous conversation at the start of the game?
心に
Hmm. And I think this is relating to that other note that we got back in Abisugaoka. Well, this is taking place in the other world, though, so why would we be getting files like this?
こっちこっちこっちだよひなこ
咲子咲子なのどこ
The wish to have one's romantic desires fulfilled is as old as humanity itself. Consequently, there have existed many arts by which people attempt to make such dreams come true. One such method was to employ a sorcerer known as a Jugonshi to perform an incantation written in the Enmi Jugonroku. After such spells were suspected of causing chaos and turmoil in the imperial court, their practice was expressly forbidden under the Yoro Code in the first year of the Tempio Hoji era, 757 AD. However, these incantations were later adopted into the practice of Onmyodo, where their effects continued to be studied. According to multiple sources, powerful romantic spells that have been successfully cast are often accompanied by the scent of sandalwood.
でもお供え物だったよね
Okay, so this enemy's gonna be chasing you, but as long as you don't look at it, you won't drain your stamina. I think you go this way. No, this is the wrong way. I did it again. I keep making this mistake with going down the wrong path. It's supposed to be that way. Yeah, I remember that enemy. And here's another trial and error sequence trying to figure out how best to run past the enemies. Okay, so you gotta run before your sanity drains completely. Alright. You run past this enemy. Oh, see that? I perfectly dodge it and I still get stunned. It's so stupid. Come on. Okay, so I think it's this way. Yeah, it's this way. Just gotta keep running. That took a lot of memorization to figure out which way to go. Okay, but like I said, once we do this boss fight, it'll be a blind playthrough again. I don't know what happens in the later parts. I heard somebody mention in a comment that you apparently go to a school, and after you do the school, the game drops in quality. So I'm not too sure what to think of that comment. I'll have to see. But if you're going to make a save here, make sure the door is open before you save, just so you don't have to open it constantly. And by the way, whenever you transition between the human world and the other world, you get all your health back. So it makes the healing items redundant in certain cases. And by the way, I haven't found the benefit to using the spear yet. This is definitely where people will get Dark Souls vibes with the way this boss fight plays out. Also, I'm wondering if that thing on the back of her head is meant to represent that light that Hinako was looking at when she put that sheet over Sakuko in that candy store. And I know this sun symbol on the back of the head, that was also seen with Miranda in Resident Evil Village. I don't remember what the symbolism for that was. But this is a simple encounter. I always just perform the parry or the counter. But I back up and I always bait out this move. And if you just walk back, you'll get Sakuko to do this move that you can counter. I'm not in a good spot. I need to move this way. Watch out for this move. She has some of the deceptive combo attacks, like the variable combo system from like the Dark Souls series, where it lulls you into a false sense of security, thinking that you can punish the boss, but then they retaliate with a counter attack, which is rather odd for a Silent Hill game to have. But it's a decent encounter. It's just she has so much life. It takes ages to finish her off. When you're not trying to be caught in these traps. But when you hear her scream after doing that counter, it means she's going to be in a lengthier stun. Okay, she didn't do the attack that time. She tends to do that when we go to the next phase. I think now's a good time to use my focus attack. Of course, it didn't look like it did anything. My bar didn't drain. I'm not really sure I understand the benefit of focus. I know you do some kind of special attack, but how do you initiate it? I need to look this up in the tutorial. So use R1 to perform a focus attack. Alright, let's do it again. Was that the focus attack? Didn't look very special. But you do not have much time. You have to get her stunned before she initiates that attack. This move is pretty bullcrap because she can often teleport so far away that you don't have enough time to actually get to her before she initiates the attack. She's behind me. I can hear her with my headphones. She's this way. See, like, it's not doing anything unique. Like, this focus attack I'm doing, it doesn't look any different to a regular attack, so what exactly is it doing? It doesn't really make sense. Like, let me look at the tutorial again. So once your focus gauge is full, which is what it was, use R1 to perform a focus attack. Your current max sanity will decrease, but you will unleash a devastating attack that varies with each weapon. But what, does the knife not have a focus attack? It's confusing. Maybe I should swap to the spear instead. Maybe it has the focus attack, maybe not the knife. Yeah, but the spear is a lot slower than the knife. Nope, never mind. Oh, and I got caught in the animation, because the problem I have with this game is that when you do certain actions like the counter, or when you do other actions, your input sometimes stacks. But again, as soon as I transition back to the human world, I should regain all the health I've lost. And if you're going for the endings, you have to make sure you don't use any red capsules. But that's only on the next playthroughs. On your first playthrough, you always get the same ending. Yeah, but she has a lot of life. At a certain point, she'll not be doing that move I can counter. Yeah, this is the move I was trying to bait out. If you try to close the distance to her after she does this move, she will counterattack, just like in a Dark Souls game. That's why I gotta walk instead of run. But again, you don't have to worry about durability when you're in the other world, it seems. Oh shit! I thought it was far enough away. Yeah. Worry about your stamina. See that? That counterattack, just like in a Souls game. Try to run instead of dodge. Okay, this is it. This is the last phase. I don't have enough time. There's no way I can catch her. Or not. See, like, that's just dumb when she's teleported that far away from you. But after this, she'll die. There we go. Yeah, like, it's a decent encounter. I can definitely understand some bit of engagement if you're trying to be aggressive on her, but she's just really good at doing those counter attacks on you, especially with the way the dodge works on this game. Like, I assume it's meant to be this aggressive encounter where you're attacking her and perfectly dodging her attacks, but it's just too risky to play with that kind of play style, which is why it's just better to favor this style. And I seriously do not know if the focus attacks I did damaged her greatly. It didn't feel like the focus attacks I did caused a lot of damage. It's just such a weirdly implemented mechanic. Yeah, I don't find this boss to be as good as some of the bosses in Silent Hill 2 Remake. Like, that final encounter with the two Pyramid Heads and also with Mary or Maria, those were some of the best encounters in the Silent Hill series with Silent Hill 2 Remake. And really the only good bosses, because the boss fights in the previous Silent Hill games were atrocious. So badly designed because, of course, Silent Hill, it doesn't deliver very satisfying gameplay a lot. And then you get to Silent Hill 2 Remake and it's completely different. Even the encounters with Pyramid Head are very memorable. And you have the Flesh Lips, you have the Abstract Daddy. I mean, they were very memorable encounters in Silent Hill 2 Remake, and they just feel a bit more interesting compared to this. Wow, took you so long to help. So much for being a reliable companion, dude. See, this gives you Ghostwire Tokyo vibes, especially with the way he's using his fingers. Like you're using the ethereal weaving from Ghostwire Tokyo. This part here really made me think of Ghostwire Tokyo and not Silent Hill. I remember the water effects looking pretty bad in this cutscene. Yeah, it just doesn't look very good with the water. I mean, Batman Arkham Knight had some of the best looking water, and that game was from 2015. This is a 2025 game, and the water looks this bad. I just cannot believe it. Now, I don't understand the point of this moment right here, and I'm amazed she can have these kind of psychotic moments in the other world of all places. That's just a little confusing. And is this supposed to be some intrusive side, like her human self, or that doll saying that if you get engaged with this guy or go along with what he's doing, it'll be eternal suffering for you?
大丈夫ただの水だよ
Again, like the rules of the other world and with Silent Hill and with Abyss Gooka are just so inconsistent between the games. And again, like I don't really see the identity of Silent Hill in this particular game. Yeah, so I'm assuming this celluloid doll is creating this psychotic episode. As if to say, don't trust this guy.
ひなこおいしっかりしろ
And Rinko was just standing there the whole
そうだ
time.
ねあんた階段から落ちたんだよ
And we're really saying that kind of line while we're in this town that's haunted.
腕どうした
あれ引っ掛けて破いちゃったのかな
特にあざはないみたいだな痛むところはないか
うん大丈夫それはよかった
Even in this weird screenplay moment, the voice acting actually sounds good compared to what it would sound like in the previous Silent Hill games.
どうした
行こう時間を無駄にした
よし行こう
私をちゃんと守ってよ私ひなこみたいに強くないんだから
分かってる俺から離れるな
I'm not tough like Hinako. I'm surprised she would even say that when she seemingly has a lot of distrust and envy towards Hinako.
目指すは俺の家だ裏道から山を越え剣道に出よう俺が先頭を行く相棒はしんがりを
分かった私はシュウ君の後ろにいるね真ん中なら安心だししんがりは引き受けた
Rinko is earnest and works really hard, but she also tends to get a little too caught up in her own ways of seeing things. Once she comes to a conclusion in her head, it can be like pulling teeth to convince her otherwise. Although we're the best of friends now, we've had 2 or 3 huge fights in the past that ended with us not speaking to each other for weeks and weeks. I'm sure we'll end up fighting again in the future, but even if we do, I know we'll be able to make up again. Shu always had a vast knowledge of plants and flowers, so his nickname came to be Professor Horticulture. He has so many aspirations for his future. He wants to be a gardener, herbalist, Matsutake farmer, and a member of the Space Army. Shu comes from a long line of pharmacists, with his grandmother still working as one. Following the war, a town doctor was finally able to open an actual practice. Before that, the Iwais were said to have been stand-in doctors. As Shu was a grandma's boy, he spent a lot of time learning about various types of plants, flowers, and medicinal herbs that seemed to have sparked his interest in medicine, which eventually led to him learning first aid. It seems that he was interested in learning first aid because of his family lineage as pharmacist and to fulfill his duty of being a member of the Space Army. Sakako is very in touch with her spiritual side. She seems to always have some god or apparition visiting her dreams, telling her about this or that. According to Sakako, there's been quite the supernatural disturbance around Abyss Gooka, something about an ancient god who's furious. about having their followers stolen from them, and now they're out for revenge or whatnot, which seems to be tying into a point from Silent Hill 3 because they resurrected that god in Silent Hill 3. I feel like they're taking a cue from that game. What kind of phrasing is that? Contrary to its name, it scares more kids off than crows. Why would she be writing it like that? And this enemy isn't really any different to the previous enemies. A monster in the form of a Miko or Shrine Maiden. It swings around a spiked mace and chain. With each swing, the crisp chime of a bell rings out. Is this actually Sakuko, or is this just a monster pretending to be her? See, again, this gives me Ghostwire Tokyo vibes because I remember Tanya, he used the bodies of his family members, at least with his wife and his daughter, and he, I'm guessing, put hostile spirits into their bodies as vessels. Then they also transformed into visitors. I don't recall what the lore was regarding that. It was always kind of confusing because they always kind of treated the bosses as if they were separate to what the actual spirits turned out to be. Yeah, again, Ghostwire Tokyo vibes with this one. Space Wars is a game that Shu and I played together when we were kids. Basically, aliens known as the Galactic Imperium would arrive in UFOs in droves, and we would fight them to protect the town. Playmates would come and go. We called them new recruits and fallen ones respectively, and in the end, Shu and I were the only ones left standing to combat the Galactic Imperium. So it's just a made-up game, and I'm guessing they just wanted to take the UFO ending from the previous games and try to make it seem like it's a game that characters have played. So like I said, this is where the blind playthrough can resume, and hopefully I won't have any more capture failures.